everyone. It's a lovely morning today, and let's pick up what has just been released by the government, the Union Budget 2018. We are also going to cover the releases provided by PIB as well as business newspaper, that is Live Mint, for 1st as well as 2nd February 2018. All the news are going to be related with Union Budget in this particular lecture. So the focus is clear, is going to be the budget of 2018. So let's start with our lecture. You can also subscribe to my free 20-day RBI Grade B course, which is available on the website. You just need to go to the website and subscribe to the course. You will get a fairly good idea as to how the entire course is covered by me and what all things I keep in mind while covering the entire course. So let's start with our session on PIB as well as the union budget. First of all, some basic facts not related to the budget. Number one, the V. Shantaram Lifetime Achievement Award for documentary. So, what is important is what is the purpose of V. Shantaram Lifetime Achievement Award? It is specifically provided for documentary, shorts, and animation films. So, all kinds of documentary, short films, and animation films are awarded through this particular award. It is the short form is MIFF, that is Mumbai International Film Festival. This can also be asked in the examination. And this year it has been awarded to Mr. Shyam Benegal. So this is also important. Now, what all things are provided to the awardee of this award is a trophy, a shawl, citation, and a cash prize of rupees 1 million or 10 lakh rupees. So all these three things are fairly important, not very, very important, but they might be asked in the examination. Committee on Bitcoins and Cryptocurrencies was set up in December 2017 under Subhash Chandra Garg. So this is important under the headings of committees which are regularly asked in RBI as well as various other government competitive examinations. Let's now come directly to the union budget. First one, let's discuss about what all has been provided or released under the heading of infrastructure. In 2017-18, certain numbers important. In 2017-18, NHAI is set to complete construction in a length of 3,500 kilometers against the average of last 5 years, which has been almost 2,000 kilometers. So this year, the average construction of national highways by NHAI is going to be almost twice of the average of 5 years, 3,500 kilometers. This number is important. The average length of road projects awarded by NHAI in the last 5 years was 2860 km. So this is also very high compared to the average length of road projects awarded. So it is not just awarded. So there are two things here. Number one, the awarded projects. That is, for example, if you come out with a tender and say that okay, 10,000 kilometer worth of road projects will be awarded this year, but against this award, the companies might be able to construct only 3,500 kilometer, only a part of that award, only a part of that particular tender making process. So only a part of it might be actually constructed in that year, but awards might be a lot more. So the award has been in the last 5 years, tender process has been awarding an average of 2860 kilometers. Against that, this year, the complete construction has been way more, 3,500 kilometers. The NHAI has invited bids for a length of 10,460 km, costing nearly 1,75,000 crore till January 2018. So this year, the length of award or invitation of bids that has been made in this particular year only has been way more at 10,000 kilometers. Secondly, the water storage available in 91 major reservoirs of the country for the week ending on 1st February was 69 BCM, billion cubic meters. 91 major reservoirs of the country. So this is specifically important for NABARD 2080. Not very important for RBI, but very, very important for NABARD examination. There are a total of 91 major reservoirs in the country, and the water storage capacity has reduced to almost 70 BCM, which is 43% of the total storage capacity of these reservoirs. If you want to go through all the major reservoirs of the country, related to which question can also be asked in NABARD examination, considering the kind of questions they have been asking in the past 2 years, then you can do so by just going to PIB and referring to this particular article which talks about water storage availability in the country. Let's now get into details of the union budget. First of all, let's talk about what railways has been provided in this budget. drastically scaling up investments by almost 3 times to 1,48,000 crore in the budget estimates of 2018-19 as against 53,000 crores in 13-14. So investments for this year, for the coming year, have been estimated to be at a whopping amount of 1,48,000 crores. Highest priority has been given to safety. So this is also important. This can also be asked in the examination, specifically RBI directly. In 2018 budget estimates, 73,000 crores. 160 kilometers suburban network worth rupees 70,000 crores in Bengaluru to help reduce congestion there and save commuting time of passengers. So in Bengaluru, a new suburban network has been proposed by the finance minister, the length of which is 160 kilometers, and the amount budgeted expenditure for that would be 17,000 crores. So all these markings that I'm making are important. Railway University to be introduced or to be set up in Vadodara. So this is also important. The total expenditure planned on safety activities, including Rashtriya Rail Sanraksha Kosh (RRSK), is 68,000 crore in revised estimates and 73,000 crores, which is the same as provided here in 2018-19. So safety expenditure on safety, including Rashtriya Rail Sanraksha Kosh, was 68,000 crores. It has been increased further to 73,000 crores. RRSK will comprise 5,000 crore from capital, 10,000 from Rail Safety Fund and Railway Share, and from Central Road Fund 5,000 crore. This is not very important. What is important is the amount of money that has been allocated towards safety in the budget estimates for 2018-19, and also the amount of money that has been spent as per revised estimates for 17-18. I hope you are very clear about what are revised estimates, what are budgeted estimates, and what are actual expenditures. So there are three things: actual expenditure, there is revised estimate, and there are budgeted estimates. Budgeted estimates are for the year 2018-19 because that is the year that is going to come up. So if the budget is launched or released or announced in 2018 in February, then the budget estimates are going to be for the coming financial year. Revised estimates are going to be for the year which is just passed, that is 17-18, and actual expenditures are going to be for the year which has passed before the current year, that is 2016-17. So this is important and it should be remembered. Let's talk about proposals on International Financial Services Center in the budget. Number one, to exempt transfer of derivatives and certain securities by non-residents from capital gains tax. What this means is that if there is a non-resident, number one, and he has invested in derivatives and certain other securities which will be specified in the rules and which are not important, and this non-resident, after having invested in derivatives or certain other securities, sells these securities or derivatives and gains certain money, makes certain profit, which is in the form of long-term or short-term capital gain tax, capital gain. So this is the capital gain that this non-resident has made out of his investments in derivatives or certain securities which are traded on IFSC, International Financial Services Sector. Then this long-term or short-term capital gain will not be taxed. This has been done in order to promote investments in IFSC and especially investments by non-residents. Non-corporate taxpayers operating in IFSC shall be charged alternate minimum tax. So this can also be asked in the examination. What is the full form of AMT? Number one. And non-corporate taxpayers shall be charged alternate minimum tax at concessional rate of 9%. This is important. At par with MAT applicable for corporates. So if you're a corporate, you were charged 9% of minimum alternate tax in IFSC. If you were a non-corporate, you were charged more than the minimum alternate tax that was charged from corporates. But now it has been brought at par, and therefore non-corporate taxpayers will also be charged MAT, which has been given another name called as alternate minimum tax. Gift City IFSC to have a separate regulator. Now, International Financial Services Sector is just like Bombay Stock Exchange. It's just like another stock exchange, international stock exchange, where 22 out of 24 hours trading happens or takes place. So it is made to make the Indian financial market a real-time, a 24-hour financial market in the world. Now, IFSC has had a regulator similar to the regulator of BSE, that is SEBI, but now, as per the proposal of Finance Minister, IFSC is going to have a separate regulator. Let's talk about proposals made for real estate in the budget. Number one, no adjustment shall be made in the case where the circle rate value does not exceed 5% of consideration. Now, this is number one. Let me tell you that this is not very important for the exam, but let me just explain it to you so that you don't get confused when you're going through the budget and you don't know whether it's important or unimportant. Now, there are two things here. Number one, consideration, and number two, circle rate. Now, circle rate is the rate which is decided by the authorities. So, the official rate or official market rate of any property today is called as the circle rate. But the consideration or the amount of money that the seller gets for selling his property. For example, I have a property, let's say in civil lines in Delhi, and I decide to sell it to another person for, let's say, 1 crore rupees. So I decided to sell it for 1 crore rupees, and this is the consideration that I receive for selling this property. Against this, what is the circle rate? The circle might be just 50 lakh rupees. If the circle rate is just 50 lakh rupees, then what is going to happen is there is a very wide difference between the consideration and circle rate, and therefore the profits that I'm going to gain from selling this property, it will be difficult to define how the profits should be actually calculated for taxation purposes by the government. Now, what the government has said now is that if the circle rate, the value, the difference between circle rate and consideration is less than 5%, so if I sold it for 1 crore, if the circle rate is 95 lakh, then the following is going to happen. Currently, while taxing income from capital gains, business profits and other sources in respect of transactions in immovable property, the consideration of circle rate value, whichever is higher, is adopted. So right now what happens is 1 crore will be considered the consideration for taxation purposes, and I will be taxed on 1 crore itself. And the difference is counted as income in both the hands. Sometimes this variation can occur in respect of different properties in the same area because of a variety of factors including shape of the plot and location. So now what has happened is that when the circle rate value is less or more than the consideration by 5%, then no adjustment has to be made and you will be taxed on the basis of circle rate only and not the consideration value. So if the circle rate is, let's say, 95 lakh or 1 crore 5 lakh, then no adjustment will be made and you will be taxed based on the circle rate. Next is income of trust and institutions. This is very important. Now, what the trusts as well as non-profit institutions have been doing is that they have been making a lot of expenses in cash, and by making these expenses in cash, they are claiming them as expenses of their trusts and institutions, even if they are making it personally, thereby paying a less amount of tax. So what the government has decided is that any payment exceeding rupees 10,000 in cash made by such an entity shall be disallowed for taxation purposes. For example, I make a revenue of a trust is, let's say, 1 lakh rupees in a year. 1 lakh is the revenue is 1 lakh. I claim expenses for running the business to be, let's say, 95,000. This is the expenses that I have claimed. I say that to earn this 1 lakh rupees, I had to spend 95,000. And all these expenses are made in cash. Now, in the future, if any of this expense is made exceeding 10,000 in cash, then that particular expense will not be counted as an expense for taxation purposes. So that will be disallowed. For example, I made one expense of 15,000 rupees in cash out of this 95,000, and the remaining were below 10,000. Then this 15,000 will not be counted, and therefore the expenses that I will be allowed is only 80,000, and I will be taxed on 20,000, and 20,000 will be considered or assumed to be my income. So this is what this means. Every entity doing transactions of rupees 2.5 lakh or more must get PAN, including its office bearers. So if you're doing a transaction of 2.5 lakh or more, you have to get a PAN. This is to ensure that all the transactions are tracked with respect to individuals or companies, so that there is no mix-up of transactions and taxation is made simpler. Next is proposals related to financial markets. Number one, Name of Central Board of Excise and Customs will be changed to Central Board of Indirect Taxes and Customs. And the reason for that is GST. Because of GST, the name has been changed now. Because all the indirect taxes will now be subsumed under one tax called GST, and therefore there should be one board for regulating as well as controlling the entire GST. To tax long-term capital gains exceeding rupees 1 lakh at the rate of 10% without allowing the benefit of any indexation. So long-term capital gain, what is it? Let me explain it to you, and then we'll talk about the second and third part. So let's say I buy a stock of, let's say, Apple. So I buy a stock of Apple for, let's say, 10 lakh rupees. 5 years down the line, more than 1 year's long-term capital gain is considered considered long term if the time period of holding this financial or real property more than 1 year. So if it is more than 1 year, then long term capital gain is charged. If it is less than 1 year, then short term capital gain is charged. So I hold this property for, let's say, 5 years, or this stock for, let's say, 5 years, and I sell it for, let's say, 20 lakh. So how much is the capital gain? 10 lakh is the capital gain that I have made in 5 years. Now, this capital gain was considered long-term capital gain, and no taxes were being charged on this long-term capital gain before. Now, in financial markets, long-term capital gain was not charged any kind of tax, and this was to improve or increase financial deepening of the economy, so that more and more people are encouraged to invest in the financial markets for long-term basis. Now, what the government has done is it has said that if the long-term capital gain, if your capital gain, which was 10 lakh in this case, is more than 1 lakh rupees, then a tax of 10% will be charged straight. So you will not be provided any exemption. 10% tax will be charged straight out of this 10 lakh rupees. Number three, to introduce a tax on distributed income by equity-oriented mutual funds at the rate of 10% to provide level playing field. So if there is any equity oriented mutual fund, if you invest in any mutual fund which invests further in equity, then out of any kind of capital gain, 10% tax will be charged from this mutual fund. All gains up to 31st January will be grandfathered. What is the meaning of grandfathering? Grandfathering means exempting. Very simple. So if your capital gain is before 31st January 2018, then it is exempt from this 10% tax. But if your capital gain is made after 31st January 2018, and if it is more than rupees 1 lakh, then you will be charged a tax of 10%. This has also created a bias against manufacturing, leading to more business surpluses being invested in financial assets. So what is the reason behind this decision? The main reason is that the financial markets are now deep enough, and the government need not provide so much exemption to the financial market, because it is now become sustainable, and it is going to keep investing in the financial markets because it is providing good returns to the people. Secondly, and main reason is that because of investments in financial markets, a lot of money which was meant to go towards investments in manufacturing or services sector was not going there, because the financial markets were providing very heavy returns in terms of long-term gains, because there were no tax at all. And therefore the government has decided to create a level playing field so that investments is also directed towards manufacturing and services sector. Number three, Department of Commerce will be developing a national logistics portal as a single window online marketplace to link all stakeholders. So only thing that you need to remember is national logistics portal is to be developed by Department of Commerce as a single window online market for all the stakeholders. Who are the stakeholders? The stakeholders are the investors as well as traders and all the manufacturers and on the registered companies. So it will be a single window online marketplace so people can buy and sell and can trade on various commodities. So that is going to be called as National Logistics Portal. Let us now talk about proposals on defense as mentioned in the Union Budget 2018. So the government says that the government will take measures to develop two defense industrial production corridors. So these are not facilities but industrial production corridors specifically for defense. This is happening for the first time in the country, so it's important. So total of two defense industrial production corridors have been announced. The government will also bring out an industry friendly defense production policy 2018 to promote domestic production by public, private and MSMEs. So we should keep in mind whenever the policy comes out, because this can also be asked in the examination. Total expenditure during 2018-19 is estimated to be over 24 lakh crore. So this number is important. One of the highest expenditures in India on any one particular sector. Defense is one of the highest among them. Next is deficit, certain numbers which have been mentioned by the budget, and they're important to remember because RBI and other similar examinations like NABARD have been seen that they've been asking numbers very consistently. Number one, fiscal deficit at 3.3% is expected to be 6 lakh crore to be financed through borrowings. 2018-19. So this 3.3% estimate is for 2018-19, and for 2017-18 the revised estimate is 3.5%. The target for this year was 3.2, but they have not been able to achieve it, and therefore the revised estimate is 3.5%. Next year's target was supposed to be 3% as declared or as announced last year, but now that has been revised to 3.3%. Next is certain numbers related to the budget which have been provided this year. Number one, when we talk about direct taxes, then the contribution of corporation tax is the highest, followed by income tax, and followed by securities transaction tax. So this is very important. This can be asked in the examination as well. It has been asked in the past years in UPSC as well as in RBI examination. Indirect taxes, the first is central GST, second is union excise, third is customs, fourth is GST compensation cess, and fifth is IGST. So this is also very important. Next is first for subsidies. Which sector takes the most amount of money in subsidies? Food is number one, fertilizer, especially urea, is number two, LPG comes at number three, kerosene comes at number four. Major subsidies in India are taking up almost 1.4% of GDP. Number three, salaries. So, President gets the highest salary at 5 lakh per month, Vice President second at 4 lakh, Governors 3.5. MP salaries have been revised with inflation every 5 years. Deficit targets for 2018-19, we've just gone through the fiscal deficit targets, that is 3.3%. The revenue deficit target is 2.2% for 18-19. Primary deficit target is 0.3% of GDP, and debt to GDP target is 40%. Presently in 2017-18, the revised estimate for debt to GDP is 47%. Please remember or recall that debt to GDP had risen up to almost 60% before this year. Disinvestment targets 80,000 crore. Last year it was 72,000 crore. New ETFs, including debt ETFs, have been planned, and Air India will be privatized. So the target for disinvestment for the next year is 80,000 crore. This number is also very important. A new cess has been introduced. We'll talk about that. Cess on income tax and corporation taxes. 2% goes for primary education. Now, the meaning and the difference of cess from taxes or from duties, it's important that you know that. If you don't know, please go through other lectures where it is mentioned. 2% primary education, 1% goes for secondary and higher education, plus a new one has been introduced, and it says 1% health cess to finance the new health insurance scheme for below poverty line or rural people. Now we'll be talking about this new scheme also very shortly. A new cess has been introduced at the rate of 1%, which will go directly for the benefit of this scheme. Securities, 15% used to be charged as capital gain tax on short term capital gains, but there was no tax or 0% tax on long term capital gains. Now it has been revised to 10% tax on long term capital gains, also given that profit is more than 1 lakh rupees. Equity mutual funds are also going to be taxed at the rate of 10% in terms of 10% distribution tax on the profits made by mutual funds of equity holdings. So this is with respect to certain numbers. Now let's revise the numbers which have been given in terms of charts. Number one, the fiscal deficit target is 3.3%, revenue deficit target 2.2, primary deficit target is 0.3, and effective revenue deficit target is 1.2. These are the targets for the year 18-19, and these are the revised estimates for 17-18: 0.4, 1.5, 2.6, and 3.5. All these numbers are very important, and it's expected that you remember them. Next is certain numbers related to gross tax receipts. Now, these are also very important. They have been asked in the past as well. What are the revised estimates for 2017-18? 11.6% of GDP, that is the gross tax receipt of the government of India, out of which 6% has come from direct taxes and 5.6% has come from indirect taxes. The budget estimates for 18-19 are 6% and 6.1% and a combined of 12.1% in terms of gross tax receipts. Proposals on insurance by the budget, very important. Pradhan Mantri Jeevan Jyoti Bima Yojana, which has been running for some time now, has already benefited 5.22 crore families with a life insurance cover of rupees 2 lakh on payment of a premium of 330 per annum. Now, all these are not important because they have been asked in the past also when the scheme was introduced. What is important is that total of 5.22 or almost 5 crore families have been benefited out of this scheme. Likewise, under Pradhan Mantri Suraksha Bima Yojana, almost 13 crore families have been benefited. Under Beti Bachao Beti Padhao, Sukanya Samriddhi account launched in 15 has been a great success. Until November 17, almost 1.26 accounts have been opened, amount of 19,000 crore. Now, all these numbers that I'm marking or highlighting are very important for the examination. They can be asked directly or indirectly in the exam. Next is with respect to senior citizens, what are the proposals? A lot of exemptions being provided to senior citizens now. Number one, exemption of interest income on deposits with banks and post offices to be increased from 10,000 to rupees 50,000. This is number one, very important. Exemption of interest income on deposits with banks and post offices. So, whatever deposits senior citizens have made with banks and post offices, the exemption of the interest income from taxes has been increased from 10 to 50,000. Number two, limit of deduction for health insurance premium has been increased. So if a senior citizen has health insurance and he's paying premium on that health insurance, then a limit of 50,000 has been decided, up to which no tax needs to be given. Raising or the tax reduces. For example, what exactly does it mean for a layman? Let us understand. The income of a person is, let's say, 5 lakh rupees, and out of that there are certain expenses. One expense is 50,000, which is for health insurance. So he's paying health insurance premium worth rupees 50,000. Now he need not pay tax on 5 lakh. This 50,000 will be reduced from 5 lakh, and the effective taxable income comes down to 4 lakh 50,000. This is what this exactly means. And similarly, there are a lot of other exemptions as well. Number three, raising the limit of deduction for medical expenditure in respect of certain critical illnesses. These illnesses have already been defined in the income tax act. No need to get into those areas. From 60,000 in case of senior citizens and 80,000 in case of very senior, to 1 lakh in respect of all senior citizens. So this has now been revised, and now if you are very critically ill and whatever medical expenses you are incurring, the limit for deduction from taxes has been revised to 1 lakh rupees. Now, these are not very important for RBI on a bad examination, because these kind of questions have not been asked in the past, because they're very technical or very detailed informations that are not usually of any use for these examinations, for these kind of jobs. But you should be aware about what are the exemptions available and what are the changes that have been made. To extend the Pradhan Mantri Vaya Vandana Yojana up to March 2020, under which an assured return of 8% is given by LIC. Now, this is very important. Number one, Pradhan Mantri Vaya Vandana Yojana. If you have not read about it, you should read about it separately. Assured return percentage 8% to be given by Life Insurance Corporation or LIC. This is important. The existing limit on investment of rupees 7.5 lakh per senior citizen under this scheme is also being enhanced to rupees 15 lakh. So this is also important. So the numbers that I've highlighted and the information that I've highlighted relating to Pradhan Mantri Vaya Vandana Yojana, this is very important. Salary taxpayer, standard deduction of 40,000 in lieu of present exemption in respect of transport allowance and reimbursement, not very important. We can eliminate this particular fact or this information. Proposals under health scheme, very important, very important for our examination point of view under social issues and also for NABARD examination. Initiatives in health sector as part of Ayushman Bharat program. So if you have not gone through Ayushman Bharat program, I recommend that you cover it up as soon as possible. And there are two initiatives that have been taken under this program. Number one, health and wellness centers, and number two, National Health Protection Scheme. So these are the two. National Health Policy has envisioned health and wellness centers as the foundation of India's health system. Under this, 1.5 lakh centers will bring healthcare system closer to the homes of people. Number one, it is under National Health Policy, and the target is to develop or to set up 1.5 lakh health centers which are going to bring closer to the homes of people the entire system of healthcare of our country. These centers will provide comprehensive healthcare, including for non-communicable diseases and maternal and child health services. These centers will also provide free essential drugs and diagnostic services. So these are the purposes of these health centers. The budget has allocated. How much amount has been allocated for this is very important. So number one, 1.5 lakh centers the target. Secondly, budget has allocated 1200 crore for this program. Contribution of private sector through CSR and philanthropic institutions in adopting these centers is also emphasized, not very important. Number two, National Health Protection Scheme. The second flagship program under Ayushman Bharat is National Health Protection Scheme, which will cover over 10 crore poor and vulnerable families, which is approximately 50 crore beneficiaries under this program. Important. And how much coverage? Up to 5 lakh rupees per family per year for secondary and tertiary care hospitalization. So if you're hospitalized, then up to rupees 5 lakh is going to be provided to your family under this program, under this scheme. This will be world's largest government funded healthcare scheme, not very important. So what are the changes that have been brought? Number one, the focus is now moving towards setting up health and wellness centers, and number two, providing insurance to vulnerable families so that they do not have to spend a lot of money out of pocket as out of pocket expenditure from their incomes that they earn. Next is the proposals made in the field of education. Number one, a new scheme, RISE, Revitalizing Infrastructure and Systems in Education, has been launched. It says that over next 4 years, a total of 1 lakh crore will be invested in the initiative. That is number one. Second, a new scheme, PMRF or Prime Minister's Research Fellows scheme, has been launched, under which 1000 best BTech students will be identified, and they will be provided PhDs in IITs and ISCs with an attractive fellowship. So the idea is to develop our students as researchers for the future, so that more innovations, more discoveries can be created out of the country. Number three, education to tribal children, sorry. By the year 2022, every block with more than 50% ST population and at least 20,000 tribal persons will have an Eklavya model residential school. So Eklavya model residential school is a very old scheme, and this has been revised or revived now, under which the target has been placed at 2022, up to which more than 50% blocks with more than 50% ST population should have an Eklavya model residential school where these SC and ST students can study and can also stay at the same time, can live as well as study. So some information related to RISE scheme that has been launched in this budget related to education. As the name itself says, it is for revitalizing infrastructure and systems in education. So the purpose is to revive the level of infrastructure in our country related to education. Under this, a total of 1 lakh crore investment will be made in the next 4 to 5 years. Higher Education Financing Agency, HEFA, would be suitably structured for funding this initiative. For funding this and providing 1 lakh crore, a financing agency called as Higher Education Financing Agency will be set up. Let's come to proposals on the in the budget on banks and regulators. Number one, this recapitalization. So we're talking about recapitalization. Number one will pave the way for public sector banks to lend additional credit of rupees 5 lakh crore. So this number is very important to remember. It is proposed to allow strong regional rural banks to raise capital from the market. And number two, very important, National Housing Bank Act is being amended now to transfer its equity from Reserve Bank of India to the government. So now this is very important. This can be asked in the examination as well as in the interview as well. So this is very important. Indian Post Act, Indian Provident Fund and National Savings Certificate are being amalgamated, and certain additional people-friendly measures are being introduced. Not very important. Um, Reserve Bank of India Act is being amended to institutionalized and uncollateralized deposit facility. What is the purpose? The purpose is to allow banks or allow Reserve Bank of India to create an instrument to manage excess liquidity. So if there is excess liquidity in the market or in the economy, this uncollateralized deposit facility has been launched. Securities and Exchange Board of India, SEBI Act and Depositories Act are being amended to streamline adjudication procedures. Not very important. All these facts are can be sidelined. So what is important here is recapitalization will provide additional credit of rupees 5 lakh crore to the economy. Regional rural banks will be allowed to raise capital from the market. Number three, National Housing Bank is being amended, Act is being amended, and a new fixed deposit facility called uncollateralized deposit facility is being launched. So these are all the important facts. Next is very important related to general insurance companies. So there are three general insurance public sector general insurance companies. What are these? National Insurance Company Limited, United India Assurance Company Limited, and Oriental India Insurance Company Limited. They will now be merged into a single insurance entity and will be subsequently listed on the stock market. Now you might get confused because GIC was created by merging or by turning other companies, a lot of other companies or four other companies into subsidiaries of GIC way back in 1970s. And what were these? These were National Insurance Company Limited, which is also available here, the name of which is also mentioned here. So this was a subsidiary of GIC, but now this will be merged completely into GIC. Next is uh, New India Assurance Company Limited. This is United India and not New India, and therefore this is a separate entity. Oriental Insurance Company Limited and United India Insurance Company. So this is United India Insurance, and the one mentioned above is United India Assurance. So these are different companies. The ones that are merging now, the names of them need to be remembered, and it is also important to remember that these are different companies from the ones that are a part of GIC as subsidiaries. A total of 4 subsidiaries: National Insurance, New India Assurance, Oriental Insurance, and United India Insurance. But these are different from the companies that are going to be merged into one general insurance company now. Number two, RBI to have uncollateralized deposit facility to absorb excess liquidity, the one that we discussed just before this. Banks can park surplus funds overnight, just like European Central Bank. So this is important. A very brief explanation on this, which says that using this facility, banks can park their surplus funds overnight with the RBI without being provided any collateral for these deposits, just like it happens in European Central Bank. So banks can now park their funds overnight with RBI using this facility. So this is a bank, and let's say this is RBI, a bigger one. So banks can now park their funds overnight with RBI. So when they're parking these funds with RBI, then this money is getting sucked out of the economy, because these banks cannot not lend this money to the people. After a certain period of time, the RBI will provide the funds back, but there will be no collateral by RBI for accepting these deposits. So whatever deposits are being provided by the banks, no collateral or security will be provided by the RBI. So that's why they're called uncollateralized deposit facility. Number three, Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies have been declared by the government as not legal tenders. So now they are going to face problems because the government has started declaring a war on cryptocurrencies and bitcoins. Government to take action against their use in illegal activities. So we'll have to wait and watch as to what the government does with respect to bitcoins and cryptocurrencies. Certain informations, facts, and initiatives in the field of employment or in the employment sector by the budget this year. Number one, reduced rate of 25% to companies that have reported turnover of up to 250 crores in financial year 16-17. Now, this is very important and it needs to be remembered. It was 50 crore before this financial year, but now in the budget, it has been announced that if you have a turnover of up to 250 crores in financial year 2016-17 or after that, the corporate tax that you will be charged will be reduced to 25%. Independent study conducted recently has shown that creation of 70 lakh formal jobs this year. Now, this number is also important, very, very important for the examination. Government will contribute 12% of the wages of new employees in EPFO for all the sectors for next 3 years. Government will mandatorily contribute 12% of the wages of new employees in who are being enrolled into Employees Provident Fund organization. To reduce women employees contribution to 8% because they want women to have more take home salaries so that they can have higher financial independence in their hands. Therefore, the compulsory contribution of women employees towards EPFO has been reduced to 8%, while at the same time, the government or the employer will keep providing EPFO at the rate of 12% or 10%. A model aspirational skill center in every district of the country under Pradhan Mantri Kaushal Kendra program. This is very important. Under this particular program, a model aspirational skill center which can provide skills to the people will be set up in every district of the country. A target of rupees 3 lakh crore for lending under Mudra for 2018-19. So it's very important that you remember what are the targets for Mudra for the year 2018-19, which is an important initiative for providing employment or for providing entrepreneurial push to the small companies in our country. Certain announcements or initiatives in the field of civil aviation. Number one, in the civil aviation sector, the budget announced a new initiative. Name of this new initiative, very important, Nab Nirman, to expand airport capacity by more than 5 times to handle 1 billion trips a year. So this is the target of Nab Nirman under civil aviation sector. The expansion will be funded by leveraging the balance sheet of Airport Authority of India. I hope you understand what is the meaning of leveraging the balance sheet. It means that Airport Authority of India is going to borrow from the market, either from banks or by issuing bonds in the market, bonds or debentures in the market, and using that money, it is going to expand the airport capacity so that a lot more number of flights can be landed and took off. Indian economy is now $2.5 trillion economy, which is seventh largest in the world, expected to become fifth largest very soon, and on purchasing power parity, we are already the third largest economy. So all these ranks are very, very important. They have been asked by RBI, NABARD as well as UPSC, and they can be asked in the future as well. Next, initiatives as well as announcements in the field of agriculture in the budget. Number one, Gobar Dhan, a new plan has been launched, which stands for Galvanizing Organic Bioagro Resources Dhan. So the full form is important to remember. And what is the purpose? To manage and convert cattle dung and solid waste to CNG and biogas. So the purpose is to utilize cattle dung and solid waste in a sustainable as well as environment friendly manner by converting it into compost, biogas and bio CNG. To allow 100% deduction to companies registered as farmer producer companies. So already the farmers or agriculturists do not have to pay any income tax, and above that farmer producer companies are also going to be provided 100% deduction if certain conditions are satisfied. And what are those conditions? Having annual turnover of up to 100 crore in respect of their profits derived from such activities for a period of 5 years. So for 5 years, farmer producer companies are not going to be taxed by the government at all from financial year 2018-19. Such tax incentive will encourage Operation Greens mission announced earlier, and it will give a boost to Sampada Yojana. So all these yojanas and schemes, Operation Greens, all these have been announced earlier, and so you are expected to have knowledge about them as well. Number two, doubling farmers' income. This was announced last year itself. Government keeps MSP of all unannounced kharif crops at least 1.5 times of the production cost. So this is important. MSP has been raised by a significant amount so that the farmers' income can be doubled. So, as per the Finance Minister, there are two targets or two focus points of the government with respect to agriculture. Number one, increasing farmers' income. So the purpose is whatever policies and initiatives are going to come forward. Number one, they want to increase farmers' income, and number two, they want to increase productivity of farmlands and productivity of farmers. So whatever initiatives are going to come forward, they are going to be focused upon these two things only. Finance Minister announces raising institutional credit. So this number is important. Institutional credit to for agriculture to 11 lakh crore from 10 lakh crore in 17-18. Number 3, rupees 500 crore Operation Greens announced to address price volatility of perishable commodities. So Operation Greens is related to only perishable commodities like potato, tomato and onions, and rupees 500 crore had been provided to address this volatility in price of perishable commodities. Next is rupees 2000 crore fund to be set up for developing and upgrading agriculture market infrastructure in 22,000 grams and 585 APMCs. How much money provided? Rupees 2000 crore fund for developing and upgrading agriculture marketing, because the biggest bottleneck in agriculture is how to take out produce of the farmer from the hands of the farmer to the mouths of the consumer. There are a lot of intermediaries involved and they are very inefficient in their functioning. A lot of red tapeism involved, and therefore it's important that the infrastructure related to intermediaries is developed. Number two, the number of intermediaries are reduced so that there's a not a big price gap between what the farmer is getting versus what the consumer is paying. And number three, the farmer can also directly sell to the consumer, which is not happening till now in India. Number two, so second is doubling allocation for food processing sector to 1400 crore. Government to promote establishment of specialized agro processing financial institutions. Not very important. Facility of Kisan credit cards has been extended to fisheries and animal husbandry. Very important. This is to remember. To help them meet their working capital needs, rupees 10,000 crore funds announced cumulatively for infrastructure development in the two sectors. Next is rupees 1290 crore restructured national bamboo mission has been announced to promote bamboo sector in a holistic manner. So this is important. The numbers are very important related to this. Special scheme to be implemented to support Haryana, Punjab, Uttar Pradesh and Delhi to address air pollution. Next is 22,000 rural hearts to be developed and upgraded into Grameen agriculture markets, grams. So the full form of grams as well as the purpose of Grameen agricultural market, so that the farmers can directly sell to consumers and bulk purchasers. So this is what I mentioned when I talked about the problems that the farmers are facing while selling to the consumers. In order to resolve that, grams have now been set up. Rupees 200 crore allocated to support organized cultivation of highly specialized medicinal and aromatic plants. So these areas have still not been exploited or utilized by Indian farmers, and also not utilized by the Indian economy as a whole. Therefore, now the government has recognized that these are important areas and can be developed into very big industries, and therefore rupees 200 crores have been allocated to this to give it a start, to give it a push. Certain information related to Operation Greens. Number one, it has been developed on the lines of Operation Flood to address price volatility on perishable commodities like potato, tomato, and onions. This is the purpose. Number two, will promote farmer producer organizations, agri logistics, processing facilities, and professional management. Number three, allocation how much? Rupees 500 crore. Grams, as I said, very important. Grameen agricultural markets, rupees 2000 crore allocated to Agri Market Infrastructure Fund for developing grams. Electronically, these are going to be linked to ENAM so that APMCs are exempted or eliminated, and at the same time the farmers are able to sell directly to the consumer using ENAM also. Next is bamboo mission, the new bamboo mission which has been launched. Bamboo has been called as green gold. Number two, bamboo grown outside forest areas have been removed from definition of trees. So bamboo has been removed from definition of trees. Bamboo called as green gold. An outlay of 1290 crore has been allocated to promote bamboo sector in a holistic manner. Number three. So this is all about information related to the budget. majority of the information, majority of the schemes and programs and initiatives taken in the budget 2018-19 have been provided in this lecture. Whatever might have been missed out or whatever specific details we will come to know in the future will also be provided in future lectures. If you like this lecture, please subscribe to my channel for regular updates. You can also comment in the section below and I will try to answer your questions as soon as possible. You can also join my Telegram group, the link to which is available in the description section below, and also my Telegram channel, the link to which is also available below in the description section itself.